Maybe if I'm back here.
No, that's kind of choppy still. Try getting like right on the mic.
Like this.
Yeah, I don't know if that's working either. Well, hopefully it improves. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, let me try. Let me fuck with the sound a little bit again. Audio settings, test speaker and microphone. Let me see if I change it to this, if you can hear.
I lost you completely. We're going backwards, man. You're still gone. Let me open up the chat. No, I got nothing. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? You're completely muted. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, now my mic's not plugged in.
It's sounding better now.
In there?
Yeah, you just sound like a robot.
Fuck me, dude.
It's like when you're a little kid and you put like a toilet paper roll to your mouth and like try and pretend like it's gonna modulate your voice, you know? Oh, I lost you again. Now we got nothing again.
You're there?
Yeah. It's not the best, but you're there.
Fuck. Let me, I'm going to try it. No, I can't do that either.
All right. Is all of everything's plugged in? Nothing's loose? Yeah, because now you're muted again.
Oh. It'll pick me up there, but that's on my computer.
Yeah, and that's all choppy.
Oh, no fucking way. Can you hear me there?
Yeah, you're crystal clear.
I'm going to fucking... Callie, stab me. Take a knife and shove it in my eyeball right now. I didn't click the on button on this fucking thing. That's why I didn't want to buy a fucking mic that had an on and off button. Stupid shit like this.
Yeah, you're crystal clear now. So
oh, cool. Yeah, I'm just retarded. We figured that out. Hey, it's recording, so that's cool. We can edit that fucking bullshit in. Fuck me. God damn it.
Well, that's a good intro to today's episode.
Yeah. It was the double shot of vodka I did before this.
We got to create like a step-by-step list because we're only doing this once a week, you know, so it's like we forget what we have to do to just set it up.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like muting and unmuting the whole chat.
Yes. Step one, click on the on button on your fucking microphone. Fucking cocksucker.
Yeah, that probably
helped. Well, this
right?
one's demonetized, I guess. I already fucked it up. I already raped it in the asshole.
I don't know, man. We might have had at least 5 minutes of us just staring at each other going, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, yeah, we're recording. So welcome to episode 3 of the Growing Pains podcast.
Growing Beach. What the fuck? What the the fuck is happening? Growing Pains, Body Geeks, Mason's Half Retarded podcast.
Man, are we getting old enough that we could like blame technology?
Yeah, that's what it is. I'll just blame
This on
technology.
button's too hard to figure out.
Yeah, this. You know, I'm just gonna blame it. I'm not gonna blame it on myself because nobody does with anything nowadays. So I have other mics that you just plug in, and then you turn on your Zoom or whatever the hell, and it records, and it's good. There's no on or off button. You just plug them in or you don't. This I have to plug in and do an on button. So I'm just gonna blame it on technology a little bit and not myself whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I'm
who
a
needs
smart guy.
who needs on and off buttons anymore? You know?
Yeah, who needs on and off buttons? This is 2021.
Yeah, you should just be able to ask like your microphone. You should be like, microphone turn off, and it'll turn off.
My microphone should have known that I identify as an on and off button and that I didn't need it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. So I kind of like this weekly setup we got, because like a whole week goes by and shit happens and we could talk about it, right? So it's not like we're doing a ton of episodes. We're struggling to find content. So you still follow UFC at all?
I do follow UFC.
You see what happened this last weekend?
Yes, if you're referring to UFC 261.
Yep.
Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. Yes, I did. I saw that. Yeah, we went to Tilted Kilt last night and watched it. Which was also weird because we were trying to find, we were gonna go to Manino's originally because he usually has the fights, and then it was like, oh, maybe we'll go check out like a local bar or something like that. So then I called around to like most commercial places that would normally have it, and I live next to the block, so I called. Well, initially I think we called Buffalo Wild Wings. We called what else is right here? Oh, Dave and Buster's was the first one, and like maybe like 8 or 7 out of 10 places said they weren't showing it. I was like, what? I'm guessing it probably has something to do with quarantine and whatever the hell, but it was bullshit. Anyway, Tilted Kilt is like, we are not a classy establishment whatsoever. So come on in.
Yeah,
we got broads and schoolgirl outfits. So
yeah, they're probably one of the only bars in California that didn't close during the pandemic because they're like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no rightful health inspectors coming here without hearing shit from their wife.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember the thing that was kind of interesting to me. It's funny because you brought up like going out to see it. One of the parts I thought that I was kind of blown away was Weidman with his leg. You saw that?
Oh yeah.
With
I saw it.
What was it? 10 years ago when Silva, maybe not even quite 10, but around there when Silva broke his leg, like doing the same thing basically.
Yeah.
And so I was
same
thinking,
exact left kick.
So I remember when that happened, that was like, I think we had known Finley for a little bit, but so Finley is a friend of ours. They got into powerlifting with us. That has a crazy history. He was in and out of prison, and just crazy life before he met us. Way back when we were still kids. This would have been, so he was already kind of well past that by the time we met him, but he was a hardcore stoner, and he is a stoner, right? And he used to come to the shop, right, and shop with me, buy supplements and stuff. So he found out that I was a stoner in college, and so he started, every time he'd come in to buy his fat burners, he'd bring me like an edible or something. And I remember eating like a whole pot muffin for that Anderson Silva fight when he broke his leg. And so I had like flashbacks not only to younger me watching UFC, but also flashbacks to that night whenever I was like so stoned and watching one of the greatest fighters of all time like snap his leg in half, so
fuck, man. Yeah, that sucked. It sucked then because especially like I would say Anderson Silva is probably still to this day one of my favorite fighters of all time, and to see that happen to him was like so like it sucked, especially because he had lost to Weidman before, and you kind of live by the sword, die by the sword type of thing, because he was kind of being an asshole when he got knocked out, against Weidman. He wasn't respecting him or anything, and got caught. And he had been able to do that so many times before and literally mock people to their face and hit them 5 times before they could get, he could get hit once, and then, got caught. So that was the most frustrating thing about it, was like, it was like, oh, he's back. Like, it seemed like he was starting to get a groove, and then all of a sudden he throws that kick, and then it's like, fuck. And then, he was just never the same after that. But I mean, just seeing that injury in general, I can't imagine the type of rehab that's going to go through and stuff. But yeah, that sucks to see Chris Weidman go through the same exact thing that, and it's funny because the last guy, I don't know if you know, that Uriah beat was Anderson Silva. Like
that's
2 months
right,
ago.
huh? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because he showed him a ton of respect. I remember that. Like he
Yeah.
dropped down to a knee or both knees or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I try and at least I don't watch all of them, just because I don't have the time, and
right.
They have them so often now, which is awesome, but also kind of like
it's great.
So but I try and stay up, at least with social media. I try and follow up on like everything that's going on, and kind of pick and choose which ones I watch and whatnot. So
yeah,
pretty cool. But
what'd you think was your what'd you think your highlight was of those fights that night?
I mean, I'm not enough of a super fan to have like a highlight where I was like jumping out of my seat.
Yeah, I just mean as far as like, what do you think was probably the craziest performance out of all those?
Well, I wasn't mentally present for all of it because I was running around chasing my daughter and stuff. So I kind of was like watching it in the background and catching the highlights until the main fight. Yeah. So seeing that knockout, I mean, that was pretty crazy. There's all the pictures you see on social media of like the sweat flying everywhere, and Masvidal's like head jerked or whatever. But I don't know. What about you?
I think the most impressive to me, barring, I thought Kamaru Usman over Masvidal was a significant knockout, especially because I thought if Usman was going to win in any which way, I thought it was going to be decision or maybe ground and pound, just kind of overwhelms him with his cardio and stuff. But I did notice at the end of round 1 that Kamaru Usman kind of seemed a little labored in his breathing, which for him is not normal. So I was like, oh, Masvidal is going to start to take over. But I did notice that Masvidal was getting hit, and I'm like, dude, that guy Kamaru like throws some heat. Like he's cracked some dudes.
Well, that's even like what Masvidal said afterwards. Like,
yeah, he was like he didn't get any of that power in the first fight, so he just didn't respect it. Masvidal was very gracious in his defeat, and he was very smart about what he said. But I
actually like him, and especially more after that, because I mean he's talked a lot of shit his whole career, especially lately, and that's kind of the general trend with a lot of these guys, right? Is they've learned kind of ever since Conor McGregor started it, that the more kind of bullshit they can throw around leading up to the fights, the more tickets sell or whatever. But to see people after the fact, to be gracious in defeat, like I'm big on stuff like that. So when I could see somebody like they could throw out all the trash talk, and then afterwards, like when they were humbled, they're gracious. It makes me respect them a lot more, because you got to be kind of cocky and arrogant as a fighter, right? But then you also have to know how to respect people when they give it to you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when they best you. Trying to think, out of the fights that night, out of the last 3, I would say it's probably a toss-up between Shevchenko and Namajunas. Shevchenko, because that way, so Jessica Andrade, the way she fights is very like bulldog, very like kind of mow you down, and literally she bullies girls like she got bullied. And the thing is she actually cut down a lighter weight class. So technically she should have been the bigger, stronger fighter, and she should have thrown Valentina around, and Valentina literally beat her at her own game. And like that's how badass Valentina is, that like she fought a bigger fighter and like bested her in the way that she was supposed to lose. If like Jessica Andrade was supposed to beat, or if she was going to win, it was going to be in that way. And Valentina Shevchenko just did it, like, and there was almost no shot for Andrade like since the beginning. So that was probably the most overwhelming performance. And then Namajunas' knockout over Wei Li was pretty nuts as well, just because that high kick, I did not see that coming. And also because Namajunas pretty much like almost 2, maybe 3 years ago, was about ready to retire. She was just mentally out of like fighting. You know, she lost, and she was fine that she lost. She actually lost to Jessica Andrade, but she was fine that she lost. You know, she kind of lost in a freak knockout. The girl basically picked her up, slammed her, and knocked her out. But then she came back and like, you know, defended that loss. But still, like, she was mentally not there for like a while, and she was almost like getting ready to retire and stuff. So like to see her come back and then beat like Wei Lee in the first round like that was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of a toss up between those two.
Right on. Well, let's see here. I threw a couple notes down just to get the juices flowing.
Okay.
As we got into this one, and that was one of the things. I also just want to mention that I started following motorcycle racing about 4 years ago now, maybe 5. Like kind of, I started following it again towards the end of my last prep because I was always a fan of bodybuilding and still am with everything involved. But I kind of found that throughout my whole life, I was only fans of things that I was doing. And I wasn't really allowing myself to be a full fan of something that I had no aspiration to be. And so like, UFC, I'm like a casual fan. Like I enjoy watching fights and kind of following the storylines, but I don't really know a whole lot about fighting, especially at that level. And I'm not aspiring to be like a cage fighter or anything like that. So that's one thing. But the motorcycle stuff has been, it's something that I'm going to be doing myself, but at a very casual level. Like I'm planning on racing, vintage, like old vintage motorcycles on a small local track, not doing like a national circuit or whatever. But it's coming near the end of the Supercross season, so that was also yesterday. There's one more weekend left. Next weekend it's done, and then the flat track stuff that I follow is going to fire up and go. But so if any of our listeners follow motorcycle racing at all, feel free to hit me up because I'm down to talk about that stuff. And then 2 other big things happened last week. The first one is great for the career. I had 2 interviews for promotion, so hopefully one of those sticks. And I'm going to circle back to that here in a second because I have, some funny stuff that kind of happens with that. Then the other big thing for me is that I finally started training legs kind of.
Nice.
I wanted to wait because I was bottom heavy last time I was competing. So I'm like, well, I'll focus on just trying to throw mass on my upper body before I worry about legs. But I just can't help myself. And I did like stiff leg deadlifts with dumbbells, like 40-pound dumbbells. And my hamstrings were crippled for like 3 days afterwards. So it just humbled me. Like I used to deadlift how much, and I used to squat how much, and do all this crazy stuff. And I literally stretched with a light pair of dumbbells and hated myself for like 3 days afterwards. But it'll get better. So on those interviews, the little preface, the state, in its effort to be like fair and equitable to everybody, has kind of created these interviews to be more like an exam than an actual interview. So like in an interview, what you expect, somebody asks you a question, you respond, and there's like a back and forth kind of conversation, right? But with these, they just kind of ask like a question, and then you have to answer, and they're not allowed to like really respond to you because they can't guide you, right? So they just take notes on like what you're saying. So it's very awkward because they'll ask this question, and then you're sitting there going like, well, I want to say all the right words so I score higher, right? So I wrote down some of these stupid questions and some of my answers. And then I got a couple for you. So the first one is, they asked, why do you want this job? And I think that's one of the dumbest questions to ask, especially in like a scoring type of setting. Because really the only reason anybody wants any job is money. I would like to make more money. And
especially if it's a promotion. It's like, hey, why do you want this promotion? Get more money, dick. What do you think?
Exactly. So I got to like keep Dirty Gertie caged in these interviews because that's like how I want to respond, right? Is well, I would like to make more money, please. I really don't care what I do for work as long as it gives me more money. So but yeah, if you said that though, right? Like you're probably not getting the job. So like, well, you should want a job for more reasons than money.
No,
it's like, no, I don't. If I'm going to work, I would like money. And I love it though, because you have to bullshit, right? You can't say that. So you have to say like, well, I think this job would be fulfilling for all these other reasons, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's like, the truth is, sure, work is fulfilling in a lot of ways outside of pay, but the reason you want the job is pay. And my argument for that is, if anybody told me, well, no, I love my job for all these other reasons, then I would just say, okay, well, you do it for free then.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Everybody would go, nope. So
yeah, then no.
So the question, why do you want this job? I want money, right? And then the other one, they're like, describe your weaknesses. And my mind starts joking with me, because these are also like, okay, this is another example where I have to like, bullshit a weakness into a strength, right?
Right.
So it's like, what are your weaknesses? If I could just go like, calves. Calves are always my weakness. Next question, please. But yeah, I hate stuff like that, man. And it's like the equivalent of small talk in a job setting, like these dumbass questions like that. But there was one they asked, right? And let me see here. And it's the one I wanted to ask you because I thought it'd be interesting.
Oh, the thought-provoking question.
So what personality trait do you dislike the most?
Oh, man.
And not about you, just like in general,
Yeah. What person? So they asked you, what personality trait do you dislike the most?
I think the way they asked it was, what personality trait in coworkers do you not get along with? And
right.
So I took that to like, what do you dislike the most?
Yeah. Oof. Oh, well, I mean, okay. In the professional aspect of it, I would say, I would say there's a professional way and a gangster way to say it. The professional way would say like accountability, being accountable, owning up to your mistakes, finding out where you lack, being honest with it, looking for backup, looking for somebody that can help you turn that into a strength, or help you with a weakness and stuff like that. That would probably be like the most, I guess, PC, answer would just be, I mean, and that is really what I think is I think accountability for me is huge, in anything. Anybody that lacks like some accountability, it's just like, you got to know when to say sorry. If you did some bullshit, like just own up to it. You know what I mean? Like quit skating around it. Don't make it the other person's problem, or act like you didn't do anything, which I think is a big thing nowadays. Like I said on this fucking thing, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be, I literally just said, even though now I'm saying it, I'm like, I'm literally not going to be accountable for the fact that I didn't just turn on my mic like a dumbass. But, but I mean, just stuff like that, like it's as little as that, people can't even say they're wrong on anything anymore. Or if they're wrong, they're, like I said, I haven't said this before, but I haven't said this on like a podcast setting, but I've seen this with, stories where, maybe a newspaper or some type of editorial will come out and blast somebody, an actor or a comedian or whatever it is, politician, about something that is, a just possible thing, like a rumor, or, something that might be going around. And then it could turn out to not be true. And then they might print a retraction. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
if they print a retraction, it's like on page 38, maybe a quarter of a paragraph. You know what I mean?
You know what's crazy about that is that don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of like pieces of shit out there, and when they get exposed, it's a good thing. But unfortunately, with social media and really not even just social media, just news in general, is that like anytime something happens, right, or something bad happens, it's usually far more complicated than what most people hear. And social media and the media just dilute that down into this very basic, horrible thing.
Yeah.
And it's really unfair to all parties to have it come down to that. And so, relating that back to accountability is it's very tough, because if you have this bad thing happened and it's very complex, and the story that everybody heard is just some diluted version of it, it's like they want somebody to somehow be accountable for that. But to truly be accountable, like, you have to understand the whole situation and be accountable for your part in that whole situation, not just this diluted version into one thing that right. So No, that's a good answer. Mine was I'll try and paraphrase it instead of keeping it super professional, but mine was basically laziness. Like I've never been somebody who got along well with lazy people, because laziness leads to procrastination, it leads to excuses. Lazy people are not accountable, right? And
Right.
a lot of people I've met that were lazy, they literally hate everything. They just become very cynical and kind of like they sit there and complain about their situation because they're too lazy to fix it. And that shit just drives me crazy, man. Like I I have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, right? We all do. But majority of what I have or how I've ever accomplished anything really has just been through ball busting hard work, that I was just willing to just try and outwork people. You know, that's been the only thing I think I found that I was like I could truly like count on, is to just, I've even approached that with my view on life now is I was like, I let go of everything. I'm like, all right, screw it. I don't know what's going to happen, but one thing I can guarantee is I'm just going to work my ass off and take it from there. Just, if I do that, I know I'll be all right, you know? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was my thing. And hopefully it didn't look too like douchey in an interview where it's like, you know, they ask you all these questions at the end. They're like, so what personality trait do you not like in coworkers? I'm like, I don't like lazy coworkers because I work harder than everybody. But you know, it's true. Like I'll put my work ethic up against anybody. So, you know.
Yeah. And I don't think, I think I know that how you are with words, and you probably put that in a good way, but yeah, laziness is definitely up there. You know what I mean? Like, and I think there's parts of laziness and accountability that go hand in hand, like you said. And yeah, laziness is a big one too. Cause it's the same thing. Like people just don't want to burn calories to, you know, own up to something they did, or, speak on, you know, their actual work and all that type of stuff. So yeah, laziness is a good one too. I was gonna say, yeah, if I was giving like the non-PC answer, I would just say like, yeah, owning up to your shit. You know what I mean? Like just fucking calling it like it is, like saying I'm this, or like that would be like my non-PC answer for it, is like, just, I don't know, don't be a fucking jackass, like speak, you know what I mean? Like speak on your shit, like call your own bullshit out, really.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right. I think that's like all I threw down a bunch of little like things to talk about or questions to hopefully help us get the podcast flowing. But what I wanted to get to in this episode is I think there we go. I got a little bit better lighting there. I gotta improve.
There we go.
No, like last episode, right? We kind of ended up talking a lot about me and what I was up to the last couple years, I guess. So I wanted to spend some time this episode catching people back up on your story. I think you've been a lot more active on Instagram in particular than I have the last few years. So I know people that follow you, they're more up to speed with what you're doing. But I think that maybe recapping that, if you're up to it, that sounds good. We can kind of hit that.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I have been active, not nearly as active as I was when I was competing, in terms of like social media and stuff. I'd probably do more stories than anything, but even then, like, it's dog memes or, stuff like that. More recently, it's just like life, like not so much my professional stuff, because I was trying to keep that quiet for a period of time. Just because I wasn't, at least I didn't feel like I was official yet, you know what I mean? And like I said, as it's at this point, it's probably been about a little over a month where I got sworn in, to where I'm like officially, have a union membership and all that. So I wanted to wait for that, but leading up to that, so we'll start with, I guess, people know I was working for something, and then I was kind of unceremoniously let go, or not so longer a part of that. And that at that time, kind of like how you had your hardship, I had my hardship. I had a place where I had moved out to, where at that point I think you were gone. You had left. I think you guys had moved already. And then really, I didn't have any family out there. I had friends that were mostly a part of the old job that I was at that I was no longer a part of. I had kind of lost competing in a sense because, I injured my back. So I was dealing with injury. I had like some personal stuff going on, relationship stuff, all that was just, everything just kind of ceased to end all at once, and I was just like in this oh shit thing because everything kind of came to a head at once. And then not only all that, I was like unemployed, for the first time. And I don't know since when.
So basically it's like injury and kind of lost a big part of powerlifting for you. I know you were still involved, but like,
right.
That's probably the thing that hit the hardest. Cause I know for me, like for both of us, like weightlifting was life, right? We were trying to fit business around that, but that was life. So
right.
Injury followed by kind of like unemployment and living in an area where you had some new friends, but was still a new area to you because I know you moved from Orange County to LA to do all that stuff. So
right. Yeah. And then on top of that, like, it wasn't just it wasn't just the fact that I was unemployed. I was unemployed, for something that at that point I had, let's see, from in like a 2-3 year period, that was probably my third time what I felt starting my life over. I had went from basically calling it quits with the fire department and moving forward to hopefully be in a corporate aspect of our old stores and stuff. And then that fell through, so then I started over, from fire to there, then started over from that to a distribution job, which that was just kind of a means to an end. I knew the writing on the wall was that for quite a while. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, but I was like, hey, like this has some security, this has some salary. I'm gonna do this for till I figure something else out.
But
There could be.
I really like that job too because I had the supplement stores at the time, and first it was Jacob, our other friend, and then it was you.
Yeah.
And so
Jacob.
Yeah, like once a week. So first our friend Jacob, for the first couple of years I had the shops, like Jacob would stop by my house once a week and stay with me, and we get to kick it. And then Mason got the job, and it'd be the same thing. So Mason would stay, come crash at my place. And so it was kind of cool that we moved past our like what I guess many would call our college years. And like, I took off to own businesses, and we all just kind of scattered, which I think happens to a lot of people. But that job in particular, I think kept our friend. I mean, we would have stayed friends regardless, but it kept our friendship kind of rolling straight from the college years because we still got to see each other at least once a week and kick it, so that, despite the actual job itself and what it afforded, from a personal standpoint, that's what I liked about it.
No, and that was maybe one of the only things. I mean, the thing that I liked about that job was the freedom because Steve was an awesome manager. He maybe wasn't as hands-on in certain areas, but he just kind of let me be just, he was like, hey, you start when you want to start and you finish when you finish, just get all of your shit done in the day, So it was like, I could literally dick around for an hour if I wanted to, or hit the gym in the middle of the day. As long as I got all of my shipments out before all those places closed, I was good, So like there was places that closed at like 10 p.m. usually, like juice stores and like vitamin shops and stuff that I would deliver to. And so I could hit those late at night on the way up to you and then not have to worry about them the next day. Or I could like dick around in the middle of the day and like go to the gym or something. And then I could be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to fucking hit those late at night before I go home, because then, from where at the time where now, eventually I ended up living there, it was 50 miles from where I live, but it's like, okay, if I do all that till like 10 or 11 p.m., there's going to be nobody on the freeway and it's going to take me 45 minutes to get home. So, I would just kind of do that. And even then, like if we weren't doing that, me and you were hitting the gym at night. So it was like, usually by the time I'd be done with the gym, I'd either stay at your house the night or go straight home. And it was only a 45-minute drive versus if I tried to do that at like 5 p.m., I might get home in 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
LA traffic.
Yeah. So then, like I said, I had transitioned to that job, and like I said, that then that company got bought out by another big company, and I don't even know what they own, but they own like 6 or 7 different, maybe more now, 10 different brands.
Yeah, they're like the It's Glambia, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they own like majority of your big name supplements. They
Yeah.
basically just wait for a
they're
supplement to get huge and they buy them out. You know.
yeah. Yeah. They're like the Nike or the Amazon of nutrition.
Yeah.
They just buy everything. Like anything that you think is organic, they probably own it. But yeah, so they bought us out, and that was nice because they gave me a stipend and they gave me like all this stuff, and like I was like, oh cool, like it padded my savings and stuff for a period of time. Then I did some online work. I was like a ghostwriter for a guy. Yeah, and you know, I was on his team, you know, did like some nutrition planning and all that for about 6 months. And then that rolled over into the job, you know, where I was eventually let go of. And then you know, I did that for a few years, but what like so I had probably, like I said, that was maybe my fourth or fifth time starting over. And when I had started over that last time, I was like, oh, like I like doing this. I didn't necessarily love the area. I like the people that were in, you know, that I was day to day with and stuff, but the area was definitely different from Orange County. You know what I mean? Like the people were different, you know. I felt there was, I know I'll probably get some shit for this, but I felt there was a sense of entitlement out there I wasn't used to dealing with. You know what I mean?
That's one of the biggest reasons I left that area. I mean, there's a ton of reasons why I left, right? And then same thing, even though I'm still a little too close, like I'm looking forward to hopefully getting further from LA, because the San Fernando Valley and Hollywood are not too far from each other. And you know, then LA is its own thing. But that area of the San Fernando Valley, the West Valley, is there's just, well, there's a lot of celebrities there, like real celebrities that live in that area.
Yeah.
And then their entourage and people. And then there's so many like wannabe celebrities too.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's also just a lot of money, old money, new money, and everything else. So there's so many people that you know, the I guess the lifestyle of keeping up with the Joneses, where like the type of car you drive, the type of house you have, where you live and stuff, like people give a shit about that out there. And I don't care at all. Like
I don't care about that stuff at all.
Yeah. And yeah, I felt the same way. I felt like I just didn't fit in. I'm like, I'm not going to go buy a really nice watch so that I can show you that I have some money. Like it just seems like a stupid sort of culture to be in. To each their own, but it definitely wasn't for me either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, I had done that. And then and like I said, when I was at the position, I kind of thought that was it, you know, because I was like, hey, like this is something I like doing. It kind of coincides with the passions I have in training and stuff like that. And then when that was gone, it was like, oh fuck. Like I had already started my life over X amount of times. Now what? You know what I mean? Then, you know, I was kind of in this lost point where I honestly didn't even really do anything for like a month. I mean, I say I didn't do anything, but like for me, that felt like didn't do anything, which might be different for me because at that point, I probably since the time I was 24 on, I had worked 60 to 70 hours. And at that point, maybe up to 80 hours a week. So then all of a sudden I had nothing to do, nowhere to go, and no job. And I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I will say I probably filled out like 20, 30 applications a day for a month, you know, and it wasn't, you know, I'd have some on the phone interviews, you know, and then like stuff I would really just be like, okay, do you really want to do this? You know what I mean? Like, is this going to be the thing? You know, so I had to kind of find a balance where I'm like, what's going to be something I feel comfortable with versus what's going to be something that like, I'm not going to hate myself doing for now. And, you know, in that period, I was like, just going to the gym. I remember I'd probably sleep in. I'd play video games almost all night, you know, in between like when I'd pause, I'd fill out like 5, 10 more applications. And then like I'd eat like 2 meals a day. You know, I remember like I would have a pre-workout of like an orange monster and like a physique cookie or something. and then when I would come home, I would either eat like, I would usually be a triple or a 3 entree course from Panda Express, and I would add a 4th entree, or it would be 2 footlongs and cookies from Subway.
It's like, so you ended up intermittent fasting without intermittent fasting.
Yeah. I intermittent fasted the shit out of that month. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I just had like, I just didn't have, like, I felt like I had a motivation to just get something and to get started. and I was actively doing stuff, you know, I had done a couple interviews in person and stuff, but I mean, I think because I didn't have a paycheck coming in or, you know, just for the first time, and I don't know how long, and I didn't have a structure of like, you wake up at this time, go to work at this time, da, 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 da. I was just so out of fish, out of water, you know, that, it just went from maybe, you know, I was about 120% in the amount of hours I was putting in versus like what I was living to just to nothing, you know what I mean? And it just felt really strange. Even when I was working from home, I kind of had that a little bit because when I was doing the coaching thing, because I was just home all day, and initially it was just like, oh, I don't feel like I'm working, you know. And then what it was I built myself an office and like put in a desk and all that, and it was like, okay, this is my working space. The second I did that, it was like, okay, like now I feel like I'm working. I go in there, I'm here, even if I'm in there 4 hours or 2 hours and 1 hour here, and then 6 hours at a time. Like either way, once I'm in there, it's all work. I
Yeah.
don't dick around in this room, you know, all that, like the TV and the video games, all that, whatever is in the other room. You know
Well,
what I
that's
mean?
what
So once,
you saw at my house. I had my battle station where I had like
yeah,
an
yeah,
office
yeah,
with the whole thing decked out. And that's because I spent, I mean, it's kind of ironic now that I work for the state, but I get to work from home. So I have like a little office set up here. But, you know, back then
right.
I spent like almost 3 years working entirely from home. Um, you know, even though we had locations and things to do, but, yeah, I found that I had to have that. If I tried to work like in the kitchen, you know, or whatever, like I wouldn't get stuff done because that's home. That's where I'm supposed to relax. So I made that room like
Yeah,
as soon
yeah.
as I walk through this door, it's work. You know, I had to separate it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what I think, you know, for anybody, especially now. I mean, I'm sure it's probably too late at this point because we've been in quarantine for or whatever the hell this is nowadays. You know, we've been in jail, people jail. You know, don't go out because you're saving lives. Jail for however long this has been now. Um, you know, I think that is something that for anybody that might have an, you know, a tough time is like just have a space where it's just like you said, you know, you kind of created a workspace and it's just like, hey, this is like, this is my, even if it's a little desk, whatever it is, a little light, something that you just need to turn where you're like, oh, this is like the work spot now. You know what I mean? Like that helped me mentally at the time when I was working from home. But like I said, then all of a sudden I was in a spot where I didn't have any of that. And then eventually it was, let's see, that was like towards the end of January. And then that went all the way till I want to say like maybe the second or third week of March is when I actually started working again. And that was an interview I had taken maybe on like 2 or 3 days after I had I was no longer working for that old company. And our mutual friend Dan, uh, you know, who was a friend of mine, was working for the company, reached out to me. He's like, hey, you know, they're looking for uh assistant general managers. You know, I know you have management experience in multiple things and stuff. I put your name in. You know, they're they're gonna ask you to come in. I went in, did an interview. I think I went in and took a second interview, and then didn't hear anything for a long time. You know, and then a position opened at his club because they did a hiring, and usually they kind of work from within, but I guess I kind of did enough to have my name still in the running. So then I went to go work for that company with Dan,
Yeah, but
and then I did that.
you should have had the perfect resume for that because like you had management experience. You know,
Right.
you're an accomplished power lifter. You've been in the health and fitness industry for like you know more than a decade at that point. So it's like, you know, you are the perfect guy for the job, really. You know,
Right.
so
Yeah, but you know, I think it's interviews are hard because sometimes where this becomes a thing with me with podcasting too is sometimes I'm just like who the fuck am I? Like I'm just some asshole. You know what I mean? And literally my girlfriend today was just like, hey, like, you know, you should talk more about like the things you've done. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably what it was in the interview was like, I just didn't maybe talk about this enough stuff that I did. You know, I just kind of put it on my resume and like it was just hard for me to be like, yeah, I've done this and done that and da da da, and like have this experience, like, and so I just don't think it translates as well. You
but
know,
I think stuff
sometimes.
like that is hard for people like us because we're both the type of personalities that we don't like to talk about ourselves. You know, we
Exactly.
do things and other people talk about what we do. And
Yes.
in this day and age, you know, professionally as well as you know, not to mention social media, you almost have to like constantly be a walking billboard of yourself, which is such a weird thing, you know, that you I hate bragging about myself or talking about my accomplishments. Like people sometimes would have to like pull that information out of me. And I'm just like, look, I'm so focused on the doing part of it. I don't want to talk about the bragging part. It just doesn't,
Yeah.
it just doesn't mesh with my personality. And I know you're the same way. So
yeah. And the biggest thing for me that like it's always come true, it's always been the theme. And I'll be able to like tie this back in later in the story, but it's something my dad told me when I was testing for the fire department. And he's like, you're literally doing the job, because at the time I was an apprentice. So the way an apprentice works is you get a stipend, but you basically you work a 24-hour shift a week, at least where I was, and you're doing the job. You know what I mean? You're literally doing everything they do. You're the first to wake up, last to go to bed, the first to get up for dinner, clean, do all that stuff. And I had done it for almost 3 full years. And my dad was like, you know what, like don't ever hesitate to say you're a firefighter. But to me, it was the same thing, like I said, where I wasn't sworn in and I wasn't getting officially paid for it. So I never said I was a firefighter, and my dad's like, you do everything. And my dad's like, you do the job. You can do the job. You've proven it now for almost 3 years. And he said, you just need somebody to give you the chance. That's all it is. You just need somebody to give you a chance. And that's always just kind of been true with stuff like that. And once it's like, you give me the chance, like, yeah, I'll fucking I'm going to run myself ragged for you. You know what I mean? If I believe what I'm doing in, and and it's like, I don't even need the motivation of you like fucking give me a pat on the back. Like, just fucking give me the chance to show you, and I'll earn that. I'm not going to ask for it. I'm going to earn that pat on the back. You know what I mean? But even then, I don't fucking need it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, so it. I had worked for that company, and it was a big 180 difference, because it was a corporate thing versus a more of a private, small mom and pop type thing that I had been doing. And there was just so much sales around it. And I just kind of got over the sales thing because of what we used to do, and I was like, I'm busting I was like, I'll skip lunch, because we had to take an hour lunch. I was like, I'll skip lunch, I'll work through, I'll do overtime, I'll do, give me extra hours. They're like, we can't, we can't. And it was just like, dude, like, I'm trying to find a way to and then eventually I told them, I was like, hey, like, the same thing, the writing was on the wall. I was like, hey, like, I'm not making enough money here, and I have the experience. My hourly rate should have been up. I know this job is, percentage based and sales based and stuff, but like, you guys kind of have to meet me somewhere halfway, because like, I've asked you for more. I'm trying to give you more,
I think that probably paints a very accurate picture of what the corporate gym life is like, because
yes,
they don't put as much value into actually running a gym well, so the gym is successful in the sense of what it provides its members. All they care about is how much revenue you could bring in by selling shit for the gym.
That's all they care about is profits. And it wasn't like, oh, is the atmosphere here better, or is there less fights, is there less arguing, is there less this and that. I mean, there was some of that, but it was just like, hey, are like people getting along better? Do people like the atmosphere here better? Like, because the gym is more than just, some people will stay away from gyms just because they're like, I don't like the vibe there, I don't like the people there, they're fucking assholes. You know what I mean? And that's something I took pride in when I was part of the old company, was like, I'm not going to let people come in here and, talk a certain way, be a certain way, like treat other customers or treat, staff members a certain way. Like, I don't need you here if that's the case. Because one or two can affect many. And I'd rather those one or two be out and I'd rather have 10 awesome people than 20 shitty people. You know what I mean? So, that had come to, and then I had been testing with some unions and stuff, and didn't get into one of them, and just was kind of like not sure what was next. I was looking at like truck driving school and just doing something where I can get compensated for the hours. I was like, I'll do overtime, whatever. Like, I just need to get something more income from somewhere, because, living in LA was tough. And then on top of that, I was just like, the rent out here is expensive, and this job isn't meeting me anywhere. And I'm trying to literally tell them like, hey, I either need to get a second job or I need to find a new job, and then randomly on October 31st, I get a call. Previously, at a week before, I had gotten a call, and it was like a voicemail. It was just like, hey, I'm so-and-so with Elevator IUEC. Give me a call.
It's almost like,
like,
at
okay,
first,
cool.
At first, you're probably wondering, like, is this a scam call? Is this?
Yeah, it was really weird. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't have any, warming up to it or anything like that. Then I got like an email, and I was like, okay, I'll check out the email. But at the time, I was managing a corporate gym. Actually, the from what I understand, still might be the busiest in that entire ecosystem of gyms. They had like some insane amount of members, and I just kind of like was like, oh, I'll get to that email, but I also got X amount of emails a day, of people like, hey, the sauna's broken, or like, I my butt itches, in the sauna, like just stupid shit like that from the corporate gym. So I was like, I'll get to this email. Then I get a call, like I said, on October 31st, and I'm literally getting ready to go into like a smaller mom and pop gym, that's right around the corner from my house. And this guy like calls me. He's like, hey, I'm so and so with IUBC. I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? He's like, yeah, you remember, the elevator test you took a few years back? And in my mind, I'm like, fuck, that's like 3 years ago. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I've been meaning to call you guys. You guys need me to come in and test again? Like, what's going on? Is there another test coming up? All that, because that's usually how it went with the fire department. That's what I was used to doing when I was testing for the fire service and all that. And except I know guys who would get the call 2-3 years later, and they're like, hey, LA County, we got a spot. Your academy starts X amount. Do you want to come in, get all the paperwork done? I had never gotten that call. I had taken, I don't know how many tests. I had never gotten that call. I just was never that lucky. So I just didn't expect that from this, because it was the only time I had taken the test. And, I knew I wasn't a high number. I think I was ranked somewhere in like the high 300s or low 400s. Um, but I do remember my interview felt like it went well. I would say out of all the interviews I had, it was one of the best. Like, for me, I felt most comfortable doing, even though I had no experience with it. I still studied for it. I did all that stuff, learned enough, as much as I could. Um, and then the guy's like, no, you're still on the list from last time. So that was another thing. Was A, I was never expecting this call, and B, I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. I was like, what do you mean the list from last time?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you're on the list from last time. I was like, okay, do you guys need me to come in and test again? Like, I'm used to rejection. Like, what's happening? And he's like, no, if you're still interested, I need you tomorrow to come in and fill out some paperwork, and this and that. Actually, this call was on the 30th, because I went in on the 31st to do everything. And I was like, okay.
That's crazy. They didn't give you any chance to like, they're like, we don't care what you're currently doing. We need you here tomorrow to get rolling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the thing, is anybody that is in this in elevator has gotten the same call. They were just like, I need you tomorrow. You know what I mean? And that's what he told me. He's like, I need you tomorrow. I was like, cool. So I showed up. I at that point, I don't think I started work till 1 p.m. that day. Or I think it was like 1 to 10 was like my shift. And I was like, okay, I can do that. He's like, I need you at 6 or 7. I was like, cool, I'll be there. It was a little bit of a drive away from where I was, like maybe 40-50 miles. I was like, cool. And then I showed up, and then the guy, there was a bunch of cars there, and I was like, oh, okay, place I'd never been before, different from where I'd taken my test previously. And then he's like, hey, so you here to test? And then in my mind, I was like, fuck, that's all this was about. I'm here to take another test, here to take another test and be on a list for another 2 or 3 years, and not be good enough. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, I'm here to test. And then I was like, they also said something about filling out some paperwork. And he's like, oh yeah, there's 2 of you. He's like, go ahead and park right here, and then go to the door over there. And I was like, oh, okay, weird. All right. So then I went in, talked to this nice lady. She's like, there was me and another guy. She sat us down. She's like, okay, fill all these out, fill out all this, talking about school. I still had no idea what the hell was going on. I was like, hey, what's this for? And she's like, oh, this is for, school, and, your paperwork and 401k and all. And I was like, okay, I still don't know what the hell's going on. So I was just like doing everything with a smile and being as polite as I could. And then they took us into another room to fill out some more paperwork, and we talked to a different lady, and she was very nice and all that. And then I was just like, okay, like, do I start school on Monday? Like, I just had no idea what was going on, And then I was like, so, and then she gave us 2 white pieces of paper, and they were very like a couple sentences. And she's like, you're going to be going with this company. She gave one to the other guy. You're going to be going with this company. And it's funny because the guy was living in Long Beach and he was going to be driving to Van Nuys. That's where his company was. I was living in Woodland Hills and they were sending me to Orange County, to like Cypress. And I was like, couldn't they just switch us papers? You know what I mean? Like, so that way, like me and you aren't crossing each other and, you know, on like our ways. And he's like, yeah, what the fuck? And then,
like, we want to contribute to the traffic problem, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we're trying to make traffic worse. So then, so then so like literally the second I got done, I called the number that was on the paper and I was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. They told me, you know, that this is where I'm assigned. Do you guys need me to come in and take my drug test? They mentioned something about a drug test. She's like, oh yeah, come on in. So I went in, she gave me an address. I went to some seedy little place. They took my pee, all that stuff. And then I came back and I was like, hey, you know, here's my stuff. And she's like, okay, are you ready to, you know, are you ready to take your safety training course and all that? And I was like, sure. Okay. I was like, for what? She's like, oh, you know, just, I was like, what's this? Can be like an hour or two? Cause, and she's like, oh no, it'll be like 8 hours. I was like, I have to go to work. And she's like, you work here now. I was like, do I start school on Monday? She's like, no, you work here now. I was like, oh, well, I have to go quit my job. You know what I mean? And then she's like, okay. She's like, so I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, yeah, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. You know? So then yeah, I went that day, I went to the company and like talked to the manager at the time. And you know, also at this time, it was kind of like a little glimpse of hope, just because you know, unfortunately our friend Dan passed away, you know, just kind of out of nowhere. And that was at the beginning of the month. And I just, it was just adding on to all these things that have been going on to me for a while. You know what I mean? And I remember I told Bobby, because I saw Bobby that morning at the gym, you know, he was training some clients there and stuff. I was like, hey man, I got the weirdest call, you know, like, and this is like a week and a half later, you know, after Dan had passed. And I probably hadn't been to work. I'd only been to work a few times after he had passed, just because I couldn't emotionally do it, you know. And I remember the first day I went in, I had to, his desk was empty and they put some stuff there, some balloons and stuff. And I had to like, I didn't face his desk the entire time I worked. I had to like look the other way and like work from a different computer, because I'm like, I can't do it. So I remember I told Bobby, I was like, hey man, like I got this weird call, you know, from, and I kind of explained him the elevator stuff. And he's just like, he smiled and he's like, that's Dan. And I was just like, oh dude, like, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was just I don't know, it was a cool thing. And yeah, after that, like, I know me and Dan had talked about it, and he was trying to find me a way out of there and trying to find a way for me to be there with him and stuff. And it was a good time for it, you know. And I had talked to the manager about it, and you know, she knew like that I was looking for something else and stuff. And you know, she understood, and I told her it was for a union position and stuff like that. And she was like super cool with it. You know, I was just like, hey, like, I'd hate to do this to you because I'm all about being as professional as possible. I'd like to give you my 2-week notice. They're literally starting me tomorrow and stuff. And she was like, okay, you know, not a big deal. Like, you know, appreciate everything you did. And like, you know, all that, everything was really cool. She didn't give me a bad write up or anything like for leaving early. And she was just like, I get it, you know. And like, um, the next day I started my safety training. And since then it was just like within a few days I finished my safety training, got my boots. That was like on a Friday, Saturday. And then I think I was working that Wednesday, or no, I was working that Thursday. I went to my first job site. So within like less than 7 days, I was on my first job site, you know.
Yeah, man, that's like hitting the ground running for sure.
Yes. No, there's no wasting time in elevator. And I learned that right away, especially with the company that I'm in. They pump out things very fast. They expect very tight. So it is high pressure because like they expect you to learn it. They expect you to retain it. and they expect you to just be fast and proficient at your job, which especially for me is tough because I have no experience with this sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
you
and
know
I
what
explained,
was crazy when you told me you had got that, my like bodybuilding encyclopedia like years started turning, and I think I remember John De La Rosa in New York, way back in the day when he was like, I think competing at the amateur level. That I think that was one of the jobs he was doing. One of the
oh,
courses he
really?
was doing was actually
Oh,
working
shit.
in elevators. Yeah, so
Oh, damn.
uh,
Yeah. They got a good local.
so yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's I mean that's a pretty. I know you're not done with your story yet, but that's
Yeah.
I mean that pretty much sums up kind of what we went over in the first episode, and going over things is just like you said, having to kind of pick up and start over so many times,
Yeah.
to kind of finally settle into something that works. And I think that going back to what I said in the beginning of the podcast about like what I don't like about lazy people is I've met so many people, especially now working for the state, um, so many people that like all they do is complain about their job or their circumstances, and that's it. They just complain.
Mhm.
They don't do anything about it. And I think you and I, like, we're people. You just look at our history of what we've done, and as soon as we don't like something, we change. We jump on the next opportunity and we go for it. Because it would have been very easy to sit and say poor me every step along the way, or
Right.
to sit and just stay miserable in some job that's not giving you what you need, not fulfilling and not paying enough or whatever else. And you know we've always just had, I guess, the guts to just say, nah, I'm going to try for something else. I'm going to, even if you are playing video games and submitting apps in between sessions, like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
still doing something.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That was the thing. It was just like always just kind of be doing something, try to move forward. And yeah, it just, like I said, I hit the ground running, and, that first 5 months I got my ass chewed out a handful of times, and, which I expected. And I don't blame anybody for doing, because I was slow, and I was coming into something cold and learning as I went, and terms and, parts, and there's about a million that go into an elevator. And it just, I'm still learning. There I talked to a guy the other day, and he was like, yeah, I've been in 6 years. He's like, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm like, well, I don't want to hear that, dude. Like, what the fuck? You
yeah.
know what I mean? And I'm like, I was hoping I'd be pretty solid at like 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, I was hoping I'd be solid at a year, because I meet some guys and they like fucking know their shit in a year in, and then I'm like, God, I can't wait to be there. And I'm like over a year now, and I'm like, God, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, but then I start doing something, and then like I'll
it's
tell my
nice
girl.
it's nice to know that people building and working on our elevators don't know what they're doing.
Right. No, trust me, there's a handful of guys that know what they're doing.
All right, good. At least
Yeah,
somebody
no,
does.
they're there to pick up the bolts that that I laid down. But yeah, I'll tell my girl, I'm like, it was awesome today. Like, I was on a roll. I knew, it's just same thing. It's repetition. You're just doing it more and more. And now I'm like, I can do a handful of things, and then it's like I get to something new, and I'm like, okay, this is a whole new thing I haven't done with somebody yet. Like, I got to do a handful of reps at that, and I'll get better. Um, but the biggest thing is just, it just reminds me a lot of like fire, and being like in academy, and working with those guys and stuff. Was, there's a lot of different personalities. Everybody wants to know where you came from. And they just want to see you work, like they just want to see you, like, have a good attitude and like bust your ass, you know what I mean? And I mean, I just did that, and it, that was the biggest thing. Was, I remember my first mechanic was just like, he's like, he's like, your attitude is awesome. He's like, I got to get you to speed up, but he's like, he's like, you got a great attitude. You know what I mean? He's like, I can't fault you for that. And I remember he got a phone call when I was furloughed, and I just saw it in his face, and he's like, hey, this had nothing to do with me. I'm not, they're gonna let you go. They're gonna put you on furlough. You need to call the union. You need to do this, all that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll do that. And I was just like, hey, man, like, it is what it is. Like, this is what I got to do. And even though in my mind I was like, oh shit, he was like, and he's like, and that's why I like you. He's like, because he's like, that you have a fucking great attitude, dude. And and then it was at that point probably 2-3 months later where I got off of furlough. But it was, that got scary too, because once again I was a month out from getting my medical benefits and stuff, and all of a sudden I was in oh shit mode again, because I'm like, do I need to start looking for a job again? Like, I thought I was good,
Yeah.
and then the the company called me back. They're like, hey, we need you here on
was
X amount of day.
The furloughs were from the pandemic, I'm assuming, or
Yes, furloughs were for a pandemic. And then also like construction in general, I think had slowed down and stuff. We get word of that here and there, that things might slow down a bit. And, that's why you got to be good on your times and, get your stuff done on time and work, efficiently and all that. So that's why things are tight. And, then they called me back and I just hit the ground running. And then, after not too long after that, I was a couple months in, I got asked to go to another project, and I was working on the NFL building that is right next to the new stadium SoFi in LA in Inglewood. And I was there for maybe 12 weeks or so, all together between the parking lot and between the actual building itself. And it wasn't there from start to finish. So I don't like to say like it's my elevator, but I did some of it, like the guys, that crew that I worked with, it was like 12 guys, maybe 14 like there was so many, it was the biggest job I'd been on, it's a high class job. And the head mechanic, just everybody in it, the mechanic in charge, the foreman, everybody on that job was just awesome attitudes. Like I said, it felt like being at the firehouse again. Everybody joked, but everybody worked really hard. And then that's what I was told when I was going in. They're like, hey, this team is on it. Like you need to be on your P's and Q's. And I was, and I created good relationships for that. And at some point, I think that saved my job because there was another set of layoffs and stuff. And all it was just like, I was just like the very first time like I was there that day. And then later in the day, they're like, hey, this is overtime, right? You're going to be here for like 12 hours. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm good. I got nowhere to be. And then that Sunday was coming up and they were like, hey, like, we're probably going to be after working not just Saturdays, but Sundays. And it's going to be 7/12s. And like right away, I raised my hand. I was like, I'll be here. I can be here. Yeah, no problem. You know what I mean? I was like, let's fucking do it. I'm like, I took enough time off. I didn't work for, 8 to 12 weeks. Like you guys, like you guys have been working through, like I had a little vacation I didn't want, I need to be learning this stuff. I need to get better at this job. I want to get better at this job. So, that helped me. And then like I said, that it all came around to, you know, just putting my head down and doing the work and just moving. They asked me to do something, I would go run and do it, and then if I didn't know how to do it, I'd ask for help or whatever. Like if I mess it up, I would say I mess it up, and I wouldn't blame it on anybody else, and then ask for help. You know what I mean? And then same thing, it came down to an older guy asking me what I did and all that stuff. Where you been? What have you done before? And my boss stepped in for me, and he was like, he should have been in a long time ago. You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, like that one like hit me, because I was like, fuck, like that was good to hear. And all it was like, this was that job that my dad told me that you just need somebody to give you the chance. You know what I mean? And that's all it was. And I was like, cool, I got the chance. So every time like it comes to getting frustrated and stuff, I'm like, hey, this is the thing that gave me the chance, and like I'm gonna show them what I can do. And it's like one of the first things in a long time that like, not just obviously you get compensated for the work you do, because we have so many union benefits and everything, but you do get that. And like I said, it's not needed whatsoever, but you have the guys that notice and they're like, hey, good job, man. Like, or like fucking like right on, and you're just like, oh fuck, like I didn't even know I needed that, but like you get that. And it's like, yeah, the pay is great and the benefits are great and this atmosphere is great. And even when it's not, it's like, hey man, like I've done a lot worse for a lot less money. That's like, I mean, I've had guys that are like, hey, you still like this, or like stuff when I'm just like getting my ass kicked or throwing away trash all day. And I'm like, hey man, I've done a lot worse for a lot less money. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, yeah, I'm good with this. You know what I mean? And yeah, at the end of the day, like you get that little extra like bump from somebody and like, hey man, have a good weekend. Or like, hey, da, da, da. And it's just like, fuck, I didn't even know I needed that, but like, thanks. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah. And now I get to say like, I'm in, I'm a part of it. I still have some little steps to go to be, a mechanic and all that stuff. And I still got a buttload to learn to be very proficient at my job, but you know, I'm at a good spot now. I feel good.
I think that's a great place to be in, because you got to be somewhere where there's still things to progress at, right, and things to learn and improve. But then you also need the stability, you know. So that's that's you can't ask for a better position to be in, because you know there will come a day where you climb all the way to the top and you've learned it all and you're now the top guy there, and you get to enjoy those moments at the end before you retire, right? You know, but that
right.
I don't know, as cliche as it is, the whole, it's not the destination but the journey. But that's, you know, to be on a path that is worthwhile, that has a destination that's worthwhile, all the hardships and good, you know, the good, bad, and ugly, everything that comes along the way, it's all worth it, you know, because it all makes the experience. So hell yeah, man. So how's
and I don't know how.
What's that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, and I don't know how many times like I've been able to reflect on just the little stuff, like, you know, and just our lifting, for example, that we've been through. And even then, like NutriShop, like the companies we used to work for, where I was able to be like, you know, we hit that high point, but it's like, damn, like it was all that stuff in between that like we had a fun time with, like, you know, yeah, even though I was probably doing inventory till like 9 or 10 p.m, like we still went and had pizza and trained and like dicked around till 2 a.m, and like, you know, like still all that stuff in between, even though like it was a ass kicker and a grinder, like it was fun, you know, like it was fun. And like I kind of miss those like little things, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm in that spot all over again, you know. And now I know now someday I'll be able to look at this and be like, damn, like you were having some of your most fun when you were like getting your ass kicked every day. Now all this now all this pressure's on you, and you know how to do your job, but you know, it's like, hey, like, you know, just like you can look back at your journey now that you're at a decent destination and be like, hey, like, you know, you've had some fun, you know. Like,
that's like I've talked to some of my clients too, when they, because you know me, I'm very big on slow progress over time. That's kind of the name of the game, especially in weightlifting and bodybuilding and stuff, you know. But they get so caught up in either, oh, I can't wait to finish school to do this, or I can't wait to you know, do this off season to get my pro card, I can't wait to blah blah blah, right? And I was the same exact way. I was a next step guy like my whole life until recently. And I found out that if I had stayed the next step guy my whole life, I'd be miserable, because at the very, you're just going to be what's next, what's next, what's next, and then you die, you know, like, so to literally, yeah, I look back at like those times where we were all training when we were younger, right? And we were all broke and working for little and gaining our experience, and, you know, taking our bumps and bruises. And I've realized that like those years were some of the best years of my life, when bodybuilding and the gym and stuff was all still relatively new. And the type of, you know, mentality and focus and attitude I had towards my first shows, there's like a magic there when that passion is so new and burning so bright, you know, that it is cool as you progress, you get to do more stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, going to like the Olympia and you know, prepping Breon, that's an awesome experience, right, from somebody who loves this stuff. But I don't want to say that it's necessarily more fun or better than me as a teenager preparing for my local show, you know. So I just try and always remind everybody, I'm like, hey, slow down, enjoy the moment, take it all in, and learn as much as you can, and just keep doing that. Like that's all you got to do forever, you know. So so where are you at in terms of, you know, the gym and powerlifting, and what's your position and role and outlook and all that? How's it fitting in with the new career and life and everything there?
You know, I would say it definitely took a big backseat, you know, till I was sworn in and stuff, because I was just like, I can't kill myself, you know, in the gym and come here and like, this has to be, because it is a physically demanding job. It takes some out of you, you know? So I'm like, I can't train till I'm like blue in the face and then coming in and work, you know, or like, and I would notice the days I would do that. I'm like, man, I'm not here today. Like I need to get off my ass, drink another energy drink, whatever, like be present here, because, you know, it is a dangerous job. You know, there are some things that you got to watch out for. And I'm like, I got to be on my P's and Q's, you know, not just because, you know, the atmosphere and like the things, the precautions that you have to take, but also just because like, hey, you're trying to learn, you're trying to make this, you're trying to get proficient at this, you know. But now it's really like I'm probably more doing a lot of like more volume bodybuilding type stuff, which has kind of been the thing. And all that is just because like I said, my back is still not in awesome shape. You know, I still have days where if I drop a pen, I don't want to pick it up, you know, or putting on my shorts sucks, you know. So squatting and deadlifting kicks my ass, you know. It just I haven't done it for probably about the last 4 to 6 weeks, maybe.
Well, I know you've done a lot to try and improve your back. I know there's still
Yeah.
some things that I think you can do.
Mhm.
What's your kind of, are you kind of just taking it day by day and seeing how that goes for now, or do you have any plans on, you
I mean,
know?
I have plans. It's just trying to figure out. I mean, part of it is money because the things that I need to do aren't necessarily covered, I think, by insurance. You know what I mean? Not saying I gotta go, like I'm going to Bolivia or Ecuador or something to get something, you know, weird, you know, monkey jizz shot into my back or anything like that. I mean, if that solved it, I'd fucking do that, right? I'd call into work tomorrow. um, but no, like you know, in terms of like things like you know, what's the big one? PRP and like stem cell are two things that are, you know, 4-figure expenses and they're not covered by insurance. So those would probably be my next thing. I've looked at cortisone shots, but you know, I've talked to some PTs and stuff and they're like cortisone can kind of stiffen you up. It could make things worse eventually down the line.
Cortisone's, yeah, it's just a band-aid. It'll help for the now, but kind of degrade things in the long run. So that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, maybe cortisone, you know. Um, and just keep my mobility stuff till then, you know, not train. I mean, I know not to train like an asshole, especially with work and everything, but not train like an asshole. If I get the cortisone injection, that would be like number one. But I mean, really the biggest thing is trying to do something to build the scaffolding, which would be more like a PRP or a stem cell. So that's going to be like probably the next step. Beyond that would be like a microdiscectomy or a spinal fusion. But even then, like surgery is something I want to stay away from, especially in this first year that I was trying to get sworn in and stuff, because I
Well, there's
didn't
significant
want
time off from that.
yeah, time
Yeah.
off from work, like time off from work, the rehabilitation of all that. And then also there's the thing where like they could say it or you know, I've seen guys doing it and it doesn't work, you know. So for me it's just like doing what I can and like training at a comfortable rate and not being too crazy with it. And then like I just train based off of my pain. If I feel something's good, I don't go crazy with it, you know, still be smart about it because I'll know the next day if I wasn't. Um,
So
and then just kind of save a little bit till one of those things becomes, you know, an option.
so are you thinking you know, are you going to try and exhaust like all these options and someday try and return to the platform and surpass your previous best, or have you let that go and you're focusing more on coaching? What are you thinking?
I, yeah, right now it's more coaching, you know. I mean it like if it gets to a point where like I feel comfortable, I would like to do at least one more meet just to because at the time when things happened, I was moving up and then this thing kind of came out of nowhere, you know. And even then I wasn't training like all balls out where it was like, hey, like, you know, it wasn't like I was training to the point where it was like, oh, like something's gonna snap eventually. Like I've seen guys train like that, and you get worried when you see guys train like that, but mine
Yeah, well,
wasn't that. So
we've seen people snap. So I think
right, yeah,
that's
we've literally seen people snap,
yeah.
and I wasn't training that way. So you know, I know once I get it, I feel comfortable to do that. Like I still won't train that way, but you know, it eventually, like if I can get there to the point where I can do one more just on my terms, I would be fine. Even if it didn't end up how I wanted to, I'd be fine. Just because I'm like, at the time when it happened, I knew I had more in me. It wasn't like, and I wasn't doing a crazy amount of anything. I wasn't eating a crazy amount at the time. My body weight was pretty low. You know, I wasn't like running a crazy amount of supplements or gear or whatever. I wasn't doing, you know, I wasn't training 50 hours a day. You know, I was maybe 4 times a week. I was training what my body would give me. It was still volume and stuff. And then every now and then I'd hit like a heavy triple or something. And then my numbers were starting to climb out of nowhere. Um, but I wasn't being nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you know, and all it was just like, damn, like I'm projected to do something that, like, at that time I was like, I did not think I would ever be here. And this is like, I'm not training for anything. Like, it was like, man, when I really put this together, I really put this in a prep. Like, I'm excited to see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, and so that's all it was. And if I can do that and be comfortable at that spot, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be cool to hang it up then. But I also have come to it because it was such a dark cloud over me. Like I said, initially, when everything fell apart, and that was my big way of processing, anger and like frustration, all that was getting that out, was training. And I didn't have that anymore, and that became such a dark cloud over me. Eventually I told myself, I was like, hey man, like, you've done enough to call it quits. Like, I just had to tell myself, like, if for whatever reason that you can't get back to the platform, life, whatever, you're back, anything like that, like, you've done some cool shit. It's like looking back at the journey, like you said, it's just be like, hey, you know what? I've done some cool stuff. I've competed in some cool meets. I've met some cool people. I mean, I have my fucking girlfriend, you know what I mean, because of powerlifting, you know what I mean? Like, we were sponsored by the same company and stuff. And like, she ghosted me for a few years. I'm just giving her shit because she's in the room right now. But like, me and her have talked about this all the time, about just like how crazy it is, when we really look at the spectrum of like where things are, because of like her background and my background, and she's from somewhere and I'm from somewhere completely different, and we're like 500 miles apart and we're together. Like, it's fucking weird, you know what I mean? But in a small part, I have powerlifting to thank for that, you know what I mean? But it's just like, like, when I can look back and at that thing, I could just be like, hey, like, you knew you had more, so that's out there. Like, you knew you were capable of more, and with the time you had, you did some cool stuff. So I can hang my hat on that. If, for whatever reason, I'm fine with that. If I could never, and then the other just aspect of it is like, I've seen guys that have gone through worse, literally in powerlifting, who have come back and done more, so that's all it is. Like anything, I think with bodybuilding or powerlifting for us in general, is like, we've seen guys do some extraordinary things just because they wanted to, or because they were just like, hey, like, I'm gonna, like, why not, and it was the same thing that got me to here. Like, I was actually telling her today, like, when I finally got to where I was, or like, was doing some numbers that me and you had seen guys do, I was just like, I never told myself I was going to be there. Like, a little bit, I was like, yeah, you can do that. But it was also like, oh, it's kind of fucking crazy. I don't know if you'll ever do that. But all it was just like little by little, like, oh, I did this, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
I did this, in another 6 months, I'm going to try this. You know what I mean? And little by little, that just started. So that's all it is I've seen people do that. And I'm just like, yeah, like, I could just take that same mentality with recovery in my back. And like, if other people have done it, like, why not me? You know what I mean? So that's where I am with it. Like, it just, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, great.
That's I take a similar philosophy, I guess, with everything, because especially after I had Riley, that's really when everything shifted, because I'm living for something bigger than myself now. Like, I'm trying to give a life to a person that's better than the one I had. I'm trying to leave the world a better place for her than my parents are leaving for me, right? And right. So it just that's, I don't want to say she's the reason why I like stopped competing. I mean, she was part of it, because I quit competing and came off all the stuff so that Becca and I could try to have a kid. But then I also, it was mostly some business failures where I was like, okay, I have a kid and I've had some business failures. Like, I need to get on top of my shit and make sure that my finances and everything are great for the kid, let alone for me. And it just seemed foolish to keep focusing so much on competing in bodybuilding or powerlifting that wasn't necessarily paying me. So yeah, I kind of said like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice the passion for that for now, to just make sure that I got everything else, my bases covered. And then I was like, and once I get all that covered, I can return to this. And fortunately, I'm still young. I was still young when I semi-retired, and I still have years ahead. So I was like, there's still time. But then, that was 2016 when I did my last show. And I think my last meet was 2015. I think I did a deadlift only at the end of a colitis flare, just because I was pissed. Right. But yeah, I looked at everything, and really it was getting to the point where I kind of separated from everything besides Breon. because I hadn't started officially coaching people yet. And Breon was trying to feed me people that wanted to hire me. And I was turning him down. I was like, nah, I don't want to coach people. Like I'm kind of just burnt out and over it. But I was committed to Breon because he's a friend, and he was Mr. Olympia. Like we won the Olympia, and I'm like, I'm gonna stick with him and be there for his career for as long as he wants me to be there. And that kept the fire alive. And at a certain point, I recognized one thing, which is kind of in line with what you said. I was like, if I never compete again, and I look at my physique and even like the powerlifting stuff I did, I'm proud of that. Like I'm happy with that. And and then I looked at coaching, and I'm like, I can coach for the rest of my life if I want to, as long as there's people willing to work with me. I can keep coaching. And
right.
There's something to be said about a legacy as a coach, about the things you could accomplish as a coach. And I realized when I started, accepting clients and working with people, how the thrill of competing as a coach, it's not quite the same as a competitor.
Right.
Like it's still, there's a little more magic there of when you're the one up on stage, and all that. But there's definitely still a lot of passion there. And like I had a client yesterday compete at the Emerald Cup, and in men's physique. He's actually the first men's physique client I've taken probably ever that I've ever actually charged somebody. And we didn't get the placing we liked. I think he kind of got screwed a little bit, but you always feel that way when you don't place well. But I went through like a 4-month prep with him of, just going through the grinder, having to find all the adjustments, pull out my bag of tricks and just figure out his body and get him there. And we made some great progress. Like the before and after, I'll be sharing it probably in a couple of weeks, whenever we get the final stage photos and stuff. But it was great. And just going through the peak week process with him and texting back and forth, getting progress pictures, I realized how much I love that shit. Like it's great. So it kind of gave me the ability to say, you know what, well, if I never do this again, I'm totally cool doing it from a coach's perspective. And I know you can feel the same way, like in powerlifting. But then I also had just that little, like I said in the last episode, a few things happen where I realized, like, I owe it to myself. Like I love this too much. I owe it to myself to not at least give it one last run. For me, it's not just one last show. It might be, but for me, it's going to be like one last run where I still may not compete for a few years, because bodybuilding is done outside of competition. That's just where you show it off. And so I have to build myself back up to a point where I feel I'm better than I was previously. So like the next show I do, I'm not going to just come back at 70% of what I used to be. Like I'm going to come back better than what I used to be. Yeah, and if it takes me, however long to do that, and I only end up competing a few more times, fine. But I just want to say at the end of the day that if I could look at what I've accomplished and say, I'm cool with that, that's really where the piece is. And so if you can say that like, if you can come back, if you can navigate these waters and come back and put up more impressive numbers or just impressive numbers or whatever, like, I'm obviously here to help and cheer for that. But at the same time, if what you've accomplished as an athlete is already come and gone, I think that you've accomplished a hell of a lot that you could be proud of what you did. And then there's still a whole world ahead of you as a coach to see, who you can, what sort of athletes you can shape and mold, and what, you never know, to find somebody that you can coach to be better than you were. That's, I think, the goal, right?
That's
coach
a lot.
For that. So,
right. Exactly.
So well, I think we've been at it for a bit now. Maybe we're coming to the end of episode 3.
Yeah, I think that's solid.
All right, man. So let's see. I'm gonna have to see what Riley's up to, if she's feeling like she wants to chill or not, because sometimes late night before we go to bed, she just goes crazy, and then I can't really do anything until we get her to wind down.
Right.
But if she wants to chill, I think I have time for a movie tonight. And there's 2 on the agenda that I haven't seen yet. One, you'll be pissed at me that I haven't seen it yet. And the other one just came out this weekend.
Right.
Should I watch Godzilla versus Kong or Mortal Kombat?
Godzilla versus Kong.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you seen both yet or no?
I've seen them both, of course.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yes. So that's my, if for anybody, if you haven't watched either, go watch Godzilla versus Kong before Mortal Kombat.
Okay. I'm going to do that then. So hopefully maybe next, and then I'll watch the other one during the week or something. So we can have a review next weekend.
Yeah. No spoilers. We'll talk about it next week.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
All right, Mason. And thank you everybody for tuning in. You're watching Body Geeks.